Right, welcome. My name is Pippa Smart. I'm the publishing consultant for the Hamdan Medical Journal, and I'm very pleased they've asked me to give a short talk on how to get published and how to get your message across. In medical research particularly, there are a large number of researchers around the world doing very interesting, very exciting work. The problem is how they communicate that to the rest of the world. There is a saying, publish or perish, which I'm sure you'll be familiar with, which says that effectively medical careers are often established by good publications, and people need to publish for their careers. There's another statement which is publish and vanish, which is where you do publish your results for your career, but they're either published in the wrong journal or they're written wrongly. Therefore, they're not read, they're not appreciated, they're not understood, and the effects of your research and your publication are effectively wasted. So what I want to talk here about is a four-structured methodology, looking at the content, the expression, the structure, and the presentation of an article. The first point is the content. The research that you write up must be worth publishing. The literature should have been researched. You should have asked the right question, planned the right experiment, and used the right methods. Once you've got results, they should be analysed correctly, and sensible conclusions should be drawn from them. And I acknowledge here the journal Diabetologia, which, if you go to the website, has an excellent short article called "What Does an Editor Look For?", which is well worth reading. Good research should be reproducible, and it should adhere to research guidelines. Ethics in research, particularly biomedical and health research, are vital to uphold. You should adhere to research standards. These are often set by national research bodies, but are generally held to be universal. And you should adhere to publishing standards. Plagiarism, which I'll talk about in a minute, copyright, particularly in the health area, confidentiality of patients, and also authorship, giving credibility and credence to the people who have actually authored the article. A quick slide here talking about researching the literature. There are several methods of organising access to literature and published research. Mendeley is one current one that is being well used at the moment. This is a social bookmarking tool which researchers can use to organise their own references, but also use to discover what other publications are being used by researchers within their field of expertise. There's also Site You Like, which is another social bookmarking site, but Mendeley seems to be the most popular one at the moment. A word quickly about plagiarism. Plagiarism has become a huge problem in publishing in the last 10 or 15 years, largely due to the ease with which people can copy and paste content from elsewhere on the web and use it within their article. It is done maliciously, with authors deliberately copying material and articles from other publications and pretending that they are their own work. But it is also done by accident and by lack of design. Particularly for authors for whom English is not their first language, to find an article which expresses what they want to say well and in good English is very hard to resist cutting and pasting sections out. Wikipedia is a key tool in this. I personally have marked exams where you've come halfway through the article and at the bottom of the exam suddenly you get a perfect explanation. And you can guarantee that's come from somewhere else and has come from Wikipedia. The key point here is you must attribute. There is no problem with repeating what someone else has said, but you must give credibility and reference to where you've got that content from. There's also another problem, which is self-plagiarism. Again, maliciously, this is done by authors who submit and publish with one journal, may slightly change the title and then submit and publish the same article with another journal. More commonly, it happens where one fairly small research project has been written up several times for publication. So you end up with a duplication. Now, this is the same author, it's their content, so perhaps there's nothing wrong with this. But it is a waste of people's time to find the same article published time and time again, and a waste of the resources of the journal and the reviewers who've had to look at multiple versions. There is a question about how much is too much, and also the methods section. In very large research projects, it's not uncommon for several articles to be developed. And where they all share the same methods section, it is a waste of effort to rewrite that. And so many journals now will accept a methods section that has already been published somewhere else by the same authors, so long as it is attributed, so long as at the end it says this methods section was first published in, and give the citation. The next thing about content is no matter how good your research is, you must have a clear message. What is the point of the article that you're writing? Can you clearly express that key message? And if you can't clearly express that, then how will a reader who reads your content be able to find what that message is? And just a note, the key message and the title are not the same. The message could be a statement of fact. For example, there is an increase of HIV in Turkey. Or it could be a challenge, improving the prevention of HIV in Turkey. Or it could be a question, why is the outbreak hard to control? But the author should be very clear about the key message that is in their article. And therefore the article should be built around that. And if an article does not have a key message, it's not worth publishing. It's a gossip column. Put it in a blog. Put it somewhere on your own personal website, but it's not worthy of a published article. Then moving on to expression, style and clarity. Generally now, it is accepted that articles need to be written to be clear. They don't have to be written to be clever. So it is better to use simplistic words rather than over-complex words. For example, instead of saying peruse, say read. So instead of the recipient perused the literature, why not the recipient read the literature? Exceedingly, be careful of hyperbole, of using excessive words. The very, very syndrome, which I'm sure you've come across, where people can no longer say it's very hot today. They have to say it's very, very hot today. Also avoid redundant words like entirely absent. Something is absent or it's not. It cannot be entirely absent. Join together, past history, other things. And use short sentences. As a general rule, after an article is written, read it again and have a challenge yourself to see how many words you can cut out. And you'd be amazed how many you can. And the reason for this is you need to know your readers. And your readers have got less and less time to read your articles. And the more short, the more concise you can make them, the more likely it is that somebody will actually read your article. Research done over a series of studies that have been carried out since 1977 say that the number of articles people are reading is increasing, which is great, but they're not spending more time overall. And so the average amount of time spent now is 34 minutes per article. This means that a large number of articles people are reading, they will never reach the materials and methods section. They'll only get as far as the abstract. And the next thing is, do people actually read the full text at all? And this is statistics from one major biomedical publisher of 3 of their journals. And they looked at the number of people that read the abstracts and how many of those converted to read the full text HTML or the PDF. And it varies quite a lot, between 50 and 71%. But you can pretty much guarantee that of everybody that reads your abstract, 20% of them, maybe more, maybe less, will never read the abstract, read the full text. So as authors, you need to make sure you get all the key points into that abstract and that you make the abstract inviting enough so that somebody will want to read the full text, or at least download it onto their computer. And a statement here from Jeff Bezos, the Chief Executive Officer of Amazon. Network tools such as desktop computers, laptops, cell phones and PDAs have changed us. They've shifted us more towards information snacking, shorter information spans. People scan. People find it harder nowadays to read consecutively, and they scan, they jump around. And as authors, you need to be aware of that, and you need to make sure that when someone comes to your article, they take away enough of it so that you have transmitted the knowledge and the information, and also that they will cite your article and give you credibility. So moving on to structure. Articles have very specific structures. They have sections and they have paragraphs within the sections. Within the biomedical area, the standard structure for a research article is called IMRAD: Introduction, Method, Results, and finally Discussion. These might be called different things in different journals, but the structure is the same. And authors need to comply with that because that is what readers expect as well. So what was the point of the research? How was it done? What were the findings? And what do the findings mean? What is the next step? Research on this has found that, interestingly, the composition varies very little in biomedical literature. The introduction varies between 2 and 4 paragraphs. It's not normally longer than 4 paragraphs. The method section can vary a lot, between 7 and 13 paragraphs and with some additional complexity. The results also can vary between 3 and 11, but again, when you get to discussion, they're normally quite concise, between 4 and 6 paragraphs. And having this kind of information can be quite helpful when you come to write an article, because knowing for the introduction, in your mind, I only need to write 2 paragraphs. It can just help a writer get over that writer's block. So structures don't vary hugely. Another thing about structure is the structure of how we speak versus how we write is different. In spoken language, we introduce a topic, we talk around the topic, and then finally we get to the point. But when written literature, you need to work the other way round, because when people are reading, they don't have the attention span to go through all the blah-de-blah-de-blah before they get to the point. So they want the message first and then the background. And this is quite important when you're structuring paragraphs and also when you're structuring sentences. With paragraphs, try to put the important information in the first sentence and then give the background, not the other way around. And finally, on presentation in this section, general thing, avoid spelling mistakes, clear layout of your document, high resolution images. It all sounds pretty standard, but it's surprising how many authors are so happy to have finished the article, they never do that final read through to check for spellings. And if an editor receives an article where the author has not bothered to spell check, then the editor must question whether the author has actually bothered to do the research properly as well. Does carelessness in the presentation also apply to carelessness in the research? And so it is important for authors to take care over the presentation. And then the key thing, of course, for an author is to select the right journal. And I'll talk about this for a minute. Readers vary very little. The most important things to them are the scope of the journal, the quality and impact of the journal, the speed of the reviewing and publication, and the readership. You then get on to issues like open access and likelihood of acceptance. But the key thing for an author is this journal right for my work? If you've written an article on diabetes, you'd be foolish to submit it to a journal on the geography of the British Isles, for example. Quality and impact. Will this journal give me good enough reward? If you can get your article published and accepted in the New England Journal of Medicine, you're going to submit it there. You're not going to submit it to a lower ranking journal. This is because the higher ranking journal will give you greater credibility for your work. Will I get published quickly? It's a key thing for authors. We live in a fast-moving world, and because of grant funding, research funding, authors are often under pressure to get that last article out quickly so they can sign off the grant funding. Speed is very important, and journals that respond to this can be much more attractive and may make an author think, well, I need to get something published quickly, therefore I will go to this journal instead of this other journal which might have given me better quality, but I have to trade that off because I have to be published quickly. And also readership. Are the right people going to read this journal? To be published, you need to, as an author, to give the journal what it wants. It wants the right content, it wants the right article type, and it wants it written in the right style. So as authors, you must find out what a journal wants. Where you find that is in items about the journal. So it's worth having a look at what the journal publishes. This also can be quite important because you may feel you know a journal very well as a reader, but an author has a slightly different relationship with a journal, and therefore it's worth checking up these things if you're suddenly coming to a journal as an author rather than as a reader. The next thing is author guidelines. I say they're not written for fun. Some of them are funny, but they're not written for fun, and they are definitely worth reading because they